The software development engineer in test, commonly known as SDET, is a unique role that blends the responsibilities of a software developer and a quality assurance engineer. Companies hire SDETs to ensure that the software being built is not only functional but also reliable, scalable, and maintainable. This requires a mix of programming knowledge, testing expertise, and problem-solving skills. Preparing for an SDET interview can feel daunting because the questions often cover multiple areas, ranging from coding and automation to test design and problem-solving scenarios. Interviewers are not just looking for someone who can write test cases but someone who can contribute to the overall quality of the software by building robust test frameworks and improving automation strategies. That means you'll need to show depth in both development and testing. In this video, we'll go over some of the most commonly asked SDET interview questions. For each one, I'll share a sample structured answer followed by useful tips. Whether you're applying for an SDET position at a startup or a tech giant, these examples will help you practice and prepare effectively. Question 1. How do you define the role of an SDET? Here's the answer. An SDET is a professional who works at the intersection of development and testing. They write code, develop automated frameworks, and ensure that the product is thoroughly tested from end to end. Unlike traditional testers, SDETs actively contribute to the codebase and work closely with developers to prevent defects early in the development lifecycle. Tip: show that you understand the hybrid nature of the role, emphasize coding, automation, and quality. Question 2. What's the difference between an SDET and a QA engineer? Here's the answer. While QA engineers primarily focus on manual testing, writing test cases, and ensuring functionality, SDETs take it a step further by building test frameworks and writing automation code. For example, a QA engineer may write manual test cases for a login system, while an SDET will build an automation suite in Selenium or Cypress to validate login functionality across multiple scenarios automatically. Tip: stress automation and coding ability. It distinguishes SDETs from traditional testers. Question 3. How do you design a test automation framework? Here's the answer. I start by analyzing the application under test and identifying the scope of automation. Then I choose the right tools and languages, for example, Selenium with Java or Cypress with JavaScript. I design the framework to follow best practices like the page object model for maintainability and scalability. I also include logging, reporting, and CI/CD integration to ensure smooth execution. Tip: mention maintainability, scalability, and CI/CD integration. These show you're thinking about long-term use. Question 4. Can you explain your experience with Selenium or another automation tool? Here's the answer. In my last role, I built a Selenium-based automation framework in Java to test a web-based application. I created reusable functions, used TestNG for test management, and integrated reporting using extent reports. This allowed the team to reduce regression testing time by 60%. I also set up Jenkins for nightly automation runs to catch issues early. Tip: provide concrete examples with numbers, e.g., time saved, percentage improvements. Question 5. How do you ensure that automated tests are reliable and not flaky? Here's the answer. I make tests reliable by using explicit waits instead of hard sleeps, ensuring proper cleanup after execution, and avoiding dependencies between tests. For example, in Selenium, I use WebDriver wait with expected conditions to handle dynamic elements. I also regularly review failing tests to determine if it's an issue with the test or the application. Tip: focus on stability techniques, mention waits, retries, independent test cases, and monitoring flaky tests. Question 6. What's the role of CI/CD in test automation? Here's the answer. CI/CD ensures that tests run automatically every time new code is pushed. For example, integrating automation tests with Jenkins or GitHub Actions allows quick feedback on build quality. This helps developers catch bugs before code reaches production. As an SDET, I ensure that automated test suites are optimized so they don't slow down the pipeline. Tip: stress that C/CD integration is about speed, feedback, and reliability. Question 7. How do you approach API testing? Here's the answer. I use tools like Postman and Rest Assured for API testing. First, I validate response codes and payloads. Then, I check for edge cases like invalid inputs and missing parameters. For automation, I integrate Rest Assured with TestNG to run regression API tests in the C pipeline. For example, in one project, API automation caught data validation bugs that weren't visible through the UI. Tip: demonstrate understanding of both manual validation and automated frameworks for APIs. Question 8. What's the difference between black box and white box testing? Here's the answer. Black box testing is focused on functionality without looking at the internal code, like testing if the login button works. White box testing, on the other hand, looks inside the code and verifies things like logic paths and loops. As an SDET, I use a mix of both, but my coding background allows me to go deeper with white box tests when necessary. Tip: keep it simple, then highlight that you can handle both due to your coding skills. Question 9. How do you debug a failed test case? Here's the answer. I first check if the failure is due to an application issue or a test script problem. If it's script related, I look at logs, stack traces, and screenshots, if enabled. I also rerun the test in isolation to confirm reproducibility. Once the root cause is identified, I fix the test or log a defect with detailed information for developers. Tip: interviewers want systematic approaches. Don't just say, "I rerun the test." Show your method. Question 10. What programming languages are you most comfortable with? Here's the answer. I'm most comfortable with Java and Python. I've used Java extensively for Selenium frameworks and Python for API testing with PyTest. I also have exposure to JavaScript when working with Cypress. Being versatile in multiple languages helps me adapt depending on the project requirements. Tip: mention versatility. Show that you're adaptable with multiple tech stacks. Question 11. How do you test for performance and scalability? Here's the answer. I use tools like JMeter and Locust to simulate high loads and measure system performance. I focus on metrics like response time, throughput, and error rates. For example, in one project, my load tests revealed that the application slowed down significantly beyond 500 concurrent users, which helped the team optimize the backend. Tip: stress practical tool usage and metrics. You don't need to be a full performance engineer, but awareness is key. Question 12. Describe a challenging bug you found and how you resolved it. Here's the answer. In a past project, automated tests repeatedly failed on checkout functionality. At first, it looked like a Selenium issue, but after deeper debugging, I discovered it was due to a race condition in backend API calls. I collaborated with developers to fix the root cause, and after the fix, both manual and automated tests passed consistently. Tip: use the STAR method, situation, task, action, result, when describing real-world problems. Question 13. How do you keep your automation skills updated? Here's the answer. I continuously practice coding on platforms like HackerRank, stay active in open-source communities, and experiment with new tools like Playwright. I also take online courses and keep up with testing blogs. This ensures I'm aware of new trends in automation and can bring fresh approaches to my team. Tip: show commitment to continuous learning. Employers value growth mindset. Closing thoughts. An SDET interview goes beyond simple testing. It measures your coding ability, automation expertise, and problem-solving skills. Employers want to see that you can design frameworks, integrate them into pipelines, and collaborate with developers effectively. The key is to practice coding questions, strengthen your automation fundamentals, and prepare structured answers for common scenarios. If you approach your interview with confidence, clear communication, and strong technical preparation, you'll not only answer questions effectively but also prove that you're capable of excelling as a software development engineer in test.